And just to be clear, these are the suggested questions that the vetters wanted you to be asked by the president or Reince Priebus.
Do you believe your previous position as U.S. attorney who prosecuted Charles Kushner has damaged your relationship with the Kushners to a point where you and Jared Kushner could not coexist in the Trump administration? Do you believe that your removal as head of the Trump transition team was orchestrated by Jared Kushner? Yes, I do, and the reason I do is because that's what Steve Bannon told me. And by the way, the interesting part of this, which shows you how disorganized they were, was they had an entire vice presidential vetting file on me. Had all of my tax returns, had all of the stuff from the U.S. attorney years and my years as governor. That's what makes this even funnier, that they would go through this.
Well, at least he's laughing. That was Chris Christie asked to read from his own vetting file, part of some brand new exclusive reporting from Axios, a massive leak of more than 100 internal transition-era vetting documents, known inside campaigns as Oppo, revealing what the president-elect's team knew about and thought about the very individuals it was interviewing and considering for top jobs, including their political and ethical vulnerabilities. Here's what we're talking about. Remember former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt of Tactical Pants fame? He was fired thanks to a wave of ethical abuses and close ties to lobbyists. A section in his vetting form was titled Allegations of Coziness with Big Energy Companies. Similar story from former HHS Secretary Tom Price, fired for wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars on chartered flights. A section in his dossier, criticisms of management ability and dysfunction and division haunting the leadership of his House Budget Committee. The list goes on and on and on. Mick Mulvaney, Nikki Haley, Rex Tillerson, and several others. The transition team was even so worried about Rudy Giuliani that they compiled a separate 25-page document called Rudy Giuliani Business Ties Research Dossier. Let's bring in the reporter with the scoop, Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for Axios of Axios and HBO fame. Take me through what we haven't mentioned yet. And that's a great clip there of you with Christie.
Well, I'll pick a few at random.
Okay.
General David Petraeus, a red flag for General David Petraeus, who was under consideration for Secretary of State National Security Advisor. This was in the red flag section. Direct quote, Petraeus is opposed to torture. Let's go through Laura Ingraham, Fox News host.
Favorite.
She was in serious consideration for White House press secretary. Direct quote in one of her red flags. Ingraham said people should wear diapers instead of sharing bathrooms with transgender people. One heading in the document about Chris Kobach. He was in serious consideration for Homeland Security Secretary. It listed, quote, white supremacy as one of his vulnerabilities. It cited accusations from past political opponents that he had ties to white supremacist groups. And there were also some of the contenders were, as we said, strikingly swampy, even by the RNC vetters standards. So Sonny Perdue, Trump's pick for Agriculture Secretary, it noted that he was the owner of Houston Fertilizer and Grain, a company that's received contracts from the Department of Agriculture. The list goes on, but you know it was really striking. And what was also striking is just how many of these people that took top jobs, that at the very top of their documents they had said the harshest things about Donald Trump's character, and they still picked them for top jobs. So it's quite extraordinary.
What's your big takeaway? I mean, one, sort of the caliber of the people that went to work for Donald Trump are not remotely close to the caliber of people that work for Bill Clinton, that work for George. And again, whatever you think of those presidencies, these are not the kinds of people that typically land in the executive branch of government. These are actually not even the kinds of people that can usually get internships on Capitol Hill, frankly. But what's your sense of where balls were dropped? Was it the chaos? Was it indifference? Was it he was swampy too? He was white supremacist too? I mean, what got these people through? Because at the end of the day, Chris Kobach, who had a white supremacy flag, ended up with a big job. Laura Ingraham, one of the president's closest allies in conservative media. I mean, really, other than Chris Christie, who had his history with Jared Kushner, just about everybody else landed top jobs.
So There's a couple of things, but the first thing to know is that they actually had a pretty normal transition until the election. Chris Christie was charged with running it. They had, as he said, 30 volumes and names for each cabinet position. Then they fire Chris Christie the week after, and so they effectively start from scratch because they didn't like the names he'd put forward. And it's just, I've talked to people who ran the George W. Bush transition. I spoke to Clay Johnson. I spoke to Chris Liu, who was senior in the Obama transition. It's just not enough time from the second week of November to the inauguration to staff an entire administration, particularly in those top jobs. So you had this enormous task of vetting, which was outsourced to a group of about 24, by all accounts very smart, but all of them were in their 20s with maybe a couple of exceptions at the RNC, and they were just speeding through LexisNexis and Google in a real hurry. So that's the process. And I'll give you one example. They vetted Andrew Puzder for Labor Secretary. They actually vetted him, but they didn't actually do a proper vet in the sense that they missed that there were local news stories that he was alleged to have domestic violence against his wife, which he later retracted. He had to withdraw the day before the confirmation hearing. So it was not enough time. It was rushed. It was frenzied. It was a group of people who were not fit for the task. And that's what you get. And the results are really clear. A lot of these people are not in these jobs anymore. Donald Trump has confirmed fewer people in top roles in the administration than any of the previous 4 presidents. His withdrawal rate is the worst ratio of any of the 4 previous presidents. So there's hard stats on this, and it's very clear why it all happened.
Jonathan Swan, something that struck me, the White House responded. They said, Trump's done more to improve the lives of people than swampy people or something like that, call them cowardly leaks. But of all the things you say about Trump, he doesn't care that this week another credible accusation of sexual assault. He doesn't care that he looks like Jeremy Bash called him a wimp and Charlie Sykes said he carries a small stick. He doesn't care. He's so proud of his performance on Iran. He doesn't care that I think 70% of the public thinks that Russia was involved. He doesn't care. He cares the size of his hands, the length of his hair, and the quality of the CEOs. I mean, this is stuff that gets right at his brand. And the truth is, he does not have the best people. He has about the worst people ever assembled in government. I mean, it would appear from your reporting about the vetting that some of the worst baggage was turned up. Well, yeah, I mean, it would appear that their response signals some sense of peevishness, that they care about having good people. I mean, there's a lot. My point is, he doesn't care about much because nothing hurts him politically. But having good people, I mean, it's obvious from the way he talks about attracting the best people, attracting CEOs. He likes to bring cameras in when there are people around him because he thinks
he's much happier with the people he has around him now. But, you had 2 big problems. You had people who had lethal ethical problems like Scott Pruitt, Ryan Zinke, Tom Price. And then you also had people who were diametrically opposed to him philosophically. Rex Tillerson. It was just this instinctual pick. He liked him. He liked the look of him. He liked how he sounded. He picked him for the most important job. I mean, Secretary of State, you are the representative to the world, and you pick someone who fundamentally disagreed with him on policy. James Mattis at Defense. By all accounts, everyone very respected in Washington, etc. But the wrong pick for Donald Trump. That, again, diametrically opposed in terms of philosophy and policy. And again, this is because it was all rushed and it was done with great haste.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.